Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Dumpster Diaries Podcast. I'm Moses Wartooth. This is Justin Allen, and today we have a special guest, Dr. Kelly Moon.
Hello.
Man, I am excited about this episode.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully we're going to learn a lot this time.
Yeah, like legitimately. So, Dr. Moon, just tell us a little bit about you, jump right into it, kind of like how did you become because you are a medical doctor.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm an MD.
Mm-hmm.
I relocated to Nacogdoches in this area about 23 years ago, right after 9/11.
Okay.
And started a private practice. So I'm family practice.
Nice.
And along the way, I've always just tried to make sure I'm just doing the next right thing for my people. And so I had a drug rep friend of mine that developed cancer. And she was really, really close to me. And it's wild because she's absolutely probably my opposite, soul, super just righteously perfect. And
That's my Moses.
Yes. And then I'm just a little on the edge. And but we got along. And anyway, she developed cancer, but her dad prior to that had cancer, and she had gone to Colorado and researched and done a bunch of things. And she talked about medical cannabis a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, I was sure.
Yeah, skeptical.
Don't
know anything about
she
it.
would have never violated a rule or a law, but I mean, for her dad, she'd have done anything. Of course, we all do things.
And just to kind of plug it real quick, because that's a lot of what you do now, right?
Yes, that's a very large portion of it. And so, I have my own private practice now. But certain days of the week, I do like Wednesdays, Thursday nights, and Saturdays. I do full medical cannabis, and so I would do it more. But I enjoy medicine. I actually like my job, so I really enjoy what I'm doing, and so it's kind of hard for me to kind of transition over to that because it is kind of a finicky industry.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to get into that.
And it's got its especially in Texas, it's got a lot of finick to it, and so and unpredictability, and so I certainly I'm not one to put all my eggs in one basket,
Sure.
and so and I do love my patients, so I feel like they need kind of all the care, and but I just kind of consider it as one more thing I can do for them, ancillary.
Yeah.
My practice kind of is all inclusive. I try to do everything in one house, right? So I can do skin things and different stuff, and I can do EKGs and echoes and ultrasounds and allergies and this and that, and so I kind of do it all there.
Okay.
And so as just part of kind of an extra kind of thing, I thought, well, I should do that. But my accountant and my lawyer were very adamant about me having separate hours and businesses and this kind of thing. And so I had to pick certain ways to put it into my schedule.
To integrate.
That into it, but be separate from my actual schedule. And so I chose Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, and all day Saturday.
So your friend, she gets cancer, and I'm assuming she starts to take it medicinally.
Yes. Her family does whatever.
Yeah.
And of course, I know nothing about the system that we have, or this would have been something she could have partook in.
Sure.
But I knew nothing of the system, and so me being a medical doctor, I thought that was interesting post her death. But and so.
Sorry to hear that.
And that was really one of the biggest things that hit me hardest is the fact that they had to go out of their way, and this became such a big part of it. I mean, by the time that I actually became her physician, and actually began to take care of her, but she was unable to towards the end actually take in any of her medicine, and so. And the medicine that we did have to give her just made her obtunded and completely out of it, and so we just. Within days, she would have passed away, And so we began inhalation marijuana, and things changed, for her. She began to eat, she began to talk more, she began to be able to communicate. She was off all these other meds. I mean, we knew it wasn't going to save her life.
Well, when I think about medical practices and what it means in general, like medicine, just from my perspective, and I'm not a medical doctor. I have no background in medicine whatsoever. I got a little bit of background with like industrial chemistry and political science, but that's it. But like when I think about it, I think it's just about increasing the quality of life for the patient.
Yes.
Right. And as long as it's ethical.
Yes.
Okay. And it increased the quality of life for the patient, there should not be an argument about
absolutely
the methodology and the treatment.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we got out of this for her is we got 3 more months of enjoyable time where she was able to watch movies together, or we spent, time, a lot more time, more family visits, different things. She was able to kind of have some more closure in her life and enjoy the rest of it. And instead of it being so traumatic and just awful towards the end. And she went peacefully. And so it was awesome. And so after that, of course, the laws changed. This was probably May or June, and just kind of serendipitously, I'm kind of thinking, wow, that was kind of amazing how that all worked. But then in September of 21, the laws changed and expanded the usage of cannabis, medical cannabis, for PTSD and, autism and different things. And so...
and I remember that legislation coming through.
Yeah.
It was very specific.
Yes.
On what it was going to be used to treat.
Absolutely. And then other neurodegenerative diseases and different things. And it also, not only that, but it did, it increased from 0.5 to 1% total THC by weight. And so it had that was nice because legal is 0.3 THC, right? That's hemp. Yeah. "Quote unquote," right? Yep. And so that increase was okay. There's something going on here, and who doesn't have PTSD? My gosh, I mean, we're all raised by parents that had PTSD.
Lived in this country.
Yes, exactly. And especially post-COVID. I mean, we're all PTSD.
So Moses and I, between the two of us, we've been to like over 50 countries.
Oh, wow.
So we've been in societies where it's completely legal. We've been in places where it's only medicinal. We're in places where it's like a death sentence if you get caught with it.
Yeah.
So we've seen full spectrum, like kind of how this works in different societies. And it's just really interesting. So you have the experience with your friend, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to explore this more. Yes. And so is that when you basically kick open the door of the accountant's and lawyer's office, and you're like, we're doing this one way or another, or I'll find someone else?
Yeah. It was one of those situations where I didn't really even know what I was getting into. And really, I just really think she was super faithful. And I always say God kind of just did it. I mean, he just opened the doors. And because it's like a big blur because I'm not exactly Miss Politically Correct. Texas, Kelly Moon, Nacogdoches, Texas. I'm not going to win that Miss Nacogdoches, little contest. And so I thought, you know what? But I'm real. And if you have, something wrong with you and you're a real human and you got a real position and you may be up there, I'm going to bet you're probably going to see me because it's going to be okay and I'm not going to judge you and there's not going to be any way that you're going to feel bad about that thing you have. And so because, I probably had it or who knows, I know someone who has, and they're probably bigger than you. And so I began to kind of just look into it and think, you know what? Something needs to happen here. I don't know what, but this is something special about this. I wasn't really a doer of weed, and so I didn't really understand the whole thing. And when she talked about it a lot with her dad, it was all real fascinating because she was into it. She was like, it was all like RSO, and she was going to cure everything with these little bitty rice dots of tar. And this was just all, and it's so funny because then it became kind of that for me. It was like I got into it and then it was just like, wow, wait a minute. What's going on, And then I decided I would just kind of pick like 5 patients in my office and I would just treat them and see what happened. And so I picked someone with MS, someone with PTSD, someone with autism, and another, I can't remember the other ones that I had picked out, but and just I didn't know what I was doing. I really, truly just had read. I'd listened to podcasts. My kids were actually probably tired of getting into the car and me with a weed podcast on, And so, I was learning everything about weed, all the names, blunts, and, I'm having to learn all this good stuff, And
I got a couple albums I'll let you
yeah, thanks. Yeah.
really get you into the community.
Yeah, I'm good. And I bought a few books since then, So, and I've heard a lot of stories, so I've gained a lot of information. I've probably learned more than everybody else.
So can I just pause you real quick and
sure.
ask? So out of all of these ailments that you treated using cannabis, right? Is there what's the number one that sticks out to you that's it is most effective for that? Is it PTSD? Is it autism? Is it a neurodegenerative disease? MS?
I would say, but there's almost too many because it's hard. I kind of roll through my head the patients that I see that each one gets affected by it. But I would probably say that the most drastic effect I see are on kids that are autistic and their families. Absolutely. Okay. I would never have thought that would be where I would see the most change.
Yeah, that is not what I expected.
No.
Because I would think something pain management wise.
Yes.
Yeah, or
don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. That is amazing too. I mean, I had one guy come in and he said, after being in 3 tours, maybe 4 or 5 tours, he had to be pretty much obtunded to go to sleep. I mean, anything he could do to just he didn't want to be within his right mind to be out because he had too many nightmares and he said for the first time in his life he could actually go to sleep without being effing up. Just completely
loaded on something else and did not come out of a pharmacy.
Yes, exactly. And so that was awesome. I was just thought, wow, and that was one of my things. So my PTSD has been fascinating too. Sleep is probably one of the biggest things I see people struggle with because there's so many side effects to so many things that are sleep agents. They make people groggy and hungover in the morning and all this stuff.
Oh yeah, if I take a Z-Quil or if I take even Robitussin or something, the entire next day I'm just in a complete fog.
Yes, exactly.
My brain doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. Brain fog is horrible, and it just sticks around too long, And then of course I've got my neuropathy, which some people would just say that could never be. Neuropathy is probably one of the coolest things that I see fixed because it's always present. It's nagging and present, and there's just nothing that once you've maximized your gabapentin and your Lyricas and your different neuropathic kind of agents, I mean, it's just pain management, and nobody believes you because they can't really test it. They can't really find it. It's not a disc. I mean, there's something wrong, but maybe they can't do anything about it.
What is neuropathy exactly?
Neuropathy is where the nerve has been injured for some reason, and there are people with idiopathic neuropathy, meaning you'll never find a reason, and there are people who have a disc that's herniated.
So it's just this phantom pain, and it's we don't have anything to test for it really, and it's just there.
Right, and there are times you can test with EMGs, and you can do things to locate, where is that coming from, and fix it, right?
Sure.
But there are times when if the nerve's either been damaged, like a spinal cord injury or a traumatic brain injury, or someone with phantom leg pain after a amputation or something like that. Breast phantom pain and breast post mastectomies and things. So all kinds of strange, just nerves that get haywire, One of the things, interstitial cystitis, which is like a bladder spasm problem. It just sits and the nerve is just going nuts. And if you can imagine having to pee every minute of your life.
Oh, that would be terrible.
All day long. And when you go to pee, nothing comes out. And then you sit and you sleep and you can't sleep, and it's just constant. It's just neuropathic. And so,
do that long enough, it make you want to put a bullet in your head. Man.
Absolutely, and they come in that state. I mean, and some of the most serious ones that when I really realized, wait, this isn't just for fun and games, and I'm not just doing this to kind of help a few folks and do some things. I had a lady come in and she actually did. She said if I didn't fix her, she'd just been to the best of the best. She'd had this pain in her guts for 8 years. It was kind of like a gastroparesis or some sort of just stomach neuropathic pain going on. Nothing was there, nothing physiologic. She'd done everything to try to figure it out, and her family was all affected by it. 8 years in, she said, if this doesn't work, I am going to kill myself.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what she came in and said to me, and I thought, pressure on.
Yeah. And that kind of reminds me. So I spent a lot of time in Holland, like famous city, Amsterdam. Been there like 14 times. It's a cool place. I got friends up there.
Yeah, awesome. They're real free with they have little pubs and
they don't have a lot of issues out there.
No.
But the thing, talking about like where. If a patient is suffering from an illness, whatever that ailment may be, and it gets to the point to where they don't even want to live anymore.
Yeah.
Going back to what we said before, the role of medicine is increase the quality of life in the patient. So if there's anything that works for it, then that shouldn't be a question. But there are times, obviously, where it's like we've done everything we possibly can. And one thing that I did like about Holland, I know this has nothing to do with your practice. It's just
but it has a lot to do with it. Because,
But one thing I did like about Holland, what I'm about to say, is they had assisted suicides.
Oh, wow.
And it's something I'd never really thought about. Mm-hmm. And then I talked to people, watched a few documentaries about it. I actually wrote a paper on it in school years ago. And once a patient becomes terminally ill, they can elect and decide to have assisted suicide. They'll come to their house, they'll do it, they can go do it in a hospital, whatever it may be. So when they know that there is no way of coming back from this disease, whatever's going to happen, and it's going to get really bad, like we can fight, for a year on chemo, and you probably got a 10% chance of making it.
Yeah.
Or you can leave at your current quality of life, and it's your choice.
Yes.
So at first, when I heard assisted suicides, I was like, "This is crazy."
Yeah.
And then I started looking more into it, and then I was like, "No, there's more of like a humanitarian ethic behind that, because especially like here in America where we don't have that, it's to me to see someone dragged and pushed through, especially when other medications that may be available are just being completely denied because some like nameless, faceless politician you've never even heard of, has no degree in medicine, has no background in it.
Right.
They get to decide what's available.
And has never done the medicine that you're trying to say could potentially help them. That's another major issue. The people that are so against cannabis, for instance, most of them have never even tried it in the first place. So for them to make rules and laws on stuff that they've never done seems a bit ridiculous.
Or had family that they've seen treated. I mean, I have had to one by one convert doctors over as their family members had problems, or they see their brother come in to see me, or they see someone that they know, or they have someone that it's affecting their lives so severely that they then their eyes become open and they go, wait a minute, this isn't exactly what I thought it was. I thought we were just all getting high.
Yeah. Reefer madness.
Yes. Yeah.
Like their only experience is they smoked it like one time.
College,
freaked out.
Yeah.
They don't want to do it
exactly.
again. Yeah. So would you say, like, overall from your experience that the medical community is on board with it? Just speak about just Texas. On board with it, somewhere in the middle, or the majority are against the use of cannabis in medicine?
That's an interesting question because I find in our East Texas area there's a lot of not on board.
Sure, that doesn't surprise me.
Yes, and so it's interesting because there's probably more people who do it, and all their patients do it, and they just won't admit it because their doctor won't. Be okay with it, which is very fun to me to see that because I'm very open, and so it's fun to see that kind of changing as we go along in this process. But a lot of people are scared. A lot of physicians are scared to support it, right? Because there are federal laws against it.
Yeah,
right?
So federally illegal, like it's highly regulated at a state level, and then also you spent all this time going to school, getting an undergrad, going to medical school, doing all of this stuff. And you probably spent decades as a medical doctor. And then to think, okay, I'm going to put it on the line for this right now?
Right.
That's a hard ask.
You're risking your reputation.
Exactly.
That's a really hard ask.
That's exactly. And then, you have your DEA license, which is federally regulated, right? And then there are these things like, you don't want anything especially if you're a pain management guy, and that's what you make money off of, is is prescribing narcotics. You know,
Yeah.
you lose that license and you are there. It's done. Medicare, Medicaid is governmental. If you take those insurances, you know, will they come back on you and say, hey, you know, you need to reimburse us because you were doing something that was federally illegal? You know, will they not let you prescribe or take care of patients who are Medicare or Medicaid? And the thing is I don't do Medicare and Medicare patients by payment. If anybody sees me, they pay cash, sign a waiver saying that they have Medicare and Medicaid, don't wish to be filed, and want to pay cash to see me, you know. Okay. So I see Medicare age patients, I see Medicaid age patients, I see all these different patients, but if I don't take their governmental insurance, then they just sign and they pay cash and we go on. You know? So I'm not limited by that. That's one of the other things, which is nice, you know.
And having your practices separated, like you said, I'm sure that is a reason for that, and that also helps have that level of separation.
To be honest, in case you're, you know, audited or whatever, you know.
Sure. And at least you can come back and say, no, this is the
this is just this, and I don't, nothing happened over here. Yes, exactly. And that's where with my first 5 patients, you know, I had done them within my clinic, right? You know, and before I really kind of decided and called my lawyers and went, this does stuff, you know, that was where I really went, wait a minute, because when I called, finally began to make the maneuver, like, I think we should do this, or I think there's something, this needs to happen, you know. I actually made a phone call to my malpractice, and my practice, and I told them that I was going to be doing that, and that I want to make sure they're aware, and you know, because when you make changes, you have to tell them, and they fired me.
Wow.
On the spot.
I was going to ask what their response was.
They said we will not, and I said, okay, well, I'm done. I won't do any 5 more. No against me, nothing against me. Thank you, Jesus. You know, never had a claim. You know, right? Yeah. And 20 years, same insurance, and they said basically. No. I said, okay, I won't do any more. And they said, no.
Wow.
You're
so just after that...
non-reinsurable. And I went, wow, oh, okay.
So where do you go from there?
So I was going to, I don't know. I didn't know what to do. So I thought, okay, so, you know, of course I was going to beg for my position back and get rid of those patients. And, you know, you start to begin to look at your options.
Damage control.
Yes, right. And then at that same day, a mother of an autistic parent or a mother of an autistic kid called me. And she literally, I'd put the kid on it 2 weeks before that. And she called me and she said that this child had not worn a helmet. This child, 23-year-old, came in hitting her head against the wall. I mean, almost broke my nurse's nose. She was always out of control. It was not a wave. And there were twins. The one had died already, but who was left, and she was absolutely uncontrollable. It was horrible. And 2 weeks in, she had attended her 2nd week of church, and they were going to go on a vacation.
Sounds like a pretty good improvement to me.
She had not worn a helmet since the first day she took the medicines. She actually was like looking at boys. Yeah. You know, she was interacting with the family. She was cooperative. And I just stopped in my tracks, looked over at my office staff, and I said, guys, we got to get to looking for medical malpractice. That's it. And that was my sign. I told you my friend was really righteous. Thank you. And I said, really? Are you serious? You know? And then ultimately, you know, I looked and called some places, and I knew in Houston that did it. And I found out what they used, and called those folks. And of course, then when you start back over, you pay more money. You do more things. Then you become a little bit weird, and then now you have to, you know. And so it's just it's a huge step. And then you can't take Medicare or Medicaid. You can't. There's just certain things that you have to do a separate thing just in case. Although the laws are really cool enough that there have been some, almost like some, I don't know what you call them. I don't know if they're called memorandums or whatever, but there have been some laws that have been put into play to protect doctors who are following their state regulations to federally keep them from getting in trouble. Yeah. But then they're repealed. But at the same time, they're still kind of followed. So even though they're not really on, the books, they're not jacking with us as long as we're following the law, kind of thing, the text, the state law.
You can have metric tons of cocaine and heroin and all that stuff make it into this country every day, and then it's just like, but Lord forbid you deal with a regulated product that has 1% THC.
Right, and then get in trouble at trying to do good for.
Yeah, legitimately helping people.
Legitimately, not wanting to just do it for people to get high. Yeah, and that's the one thing that's been probably the most interesting thing of it all is I used to. In my brain, and I can understand why physicians think that way. I used to think that 85% of the world used it to get high, and probably 15% of the world were using it for medical reasons, right? My son has seizures, and he was on CBD or Epidiolex, which is about $36,000 a year, and so that was one of the other reasons I kind of had an interest a little bit in the cannabinoids and things because of just reading more about what he was using. And he has tuberous sclerosis, and so it's one of the things that happens with that. But I didn't use him in marketing because I didn't really want to throw him into the fire, But it was definitely one of my things that made me get into it. But you got stuff like that that's so expensive, and I think that when you're dealing with people who just want help, and they're just trying to get what they need and then here you are sitting here with the keys to the kingdom, and you get in trouble for it to trying to help them, and having to give them different options that are not reliable or reasonable or hurting them.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous, honestly. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's just a lot to unpack. So. Let me just go through like a scenario with you, okay? Sure. Let's say I have an illness, whatever it may be. Let's say, I don't know, I got
PTSD.
Sure. We'll go that route. And I come and I see you, okay? And I sign a waiver, all that stuff, give you the money. Do you just have like a bag that sits under the like the table, or just
how much you need?
How does this work?
Yes. Maybe after the 23rd of this month, I might, because we'll be able to have products in whole dispensaries within our facilities.
Oh wow, really?
Which is one of the changes to the teacup, which is what I'm.
That's the 23rd of June, I guess in a couple of days.
Yes. Yes, we're talking like 8 days.
I did not know about that either.
So those are the laws that are going to go into play. That if he doesn't sign it, if he doesn't sign it, or he signs it, if he vetoes it, well, we're back to the drawing board. But it doesn't really affect what we're doing now in teacup.
Well, because if Abbott doesn't sign it after 10 days, it automatically gets passed.
Correct, because there's so much legislature that actually agree. There has to be so much. I don't know the rule on it.
Yeah, it's a thing that presidents will do too, where if basically something comes across their desk and they know it's the right thing to do is to sign it into law, but it kind of goes against what the majority of their constituents want.
Right.
They can choose not to sign it, and after 10 days, it becomes law.
Yeah.
So they can just they can pass the buck.
Right.
I didn't want this.
I'm cool. Yeah. I didn't say one way or the other. Yeah. You guys keep supporting me, and you guys keep supporting me.
Way to ride that fence.
He may do that.
And I really anticipate that he will. Okay. I don't think he'll make the decision. I think that it's so controversial and it affects so many people that I personally, now who knows, I'm intimately involved with dispensaries not because I work for them at all. I work for my patients, but because I use their products, and that's part of the system that I use, and that is what I have to do in order to use that system.
You sell a product, you need a supplier.
I need a supplier, right?
So right now, how do you acquire what you're going to prescribe your patients?
So my what I did is I realized that there were 3 available dispensary names out there, right? And so I thought, and once again, this is one of those moments where I don't know exactly how it all played out, but it just kept going, and I just kept thinking, it's just happening. Thank you, and I don't know why. Here we go, though, but I ended up being in touch. I emailed or reached out to the 3 dispensaries that I knew the names of, that I'd looked up, and one was Texas Originals, the other Good Blend, and the other was something else, but they don't have any product or haven't reached back out to me, and I've been doing this for 3 years, and I've tried to contact them, and they have not.
So there's really only 2.
So it's only 2. Really only 2.
Shell Corporation?
Yes. Or they were holding out for something bigger.
Could be that.
True.
Like this, thinking we'll go into it when things get a little bit less.
More lenient.
Yes, exactly. Which is smart because they already hold their license,
So prior to the 23rd, if I go and I see you and I get a prescription, okay, how does that work?
So
Can I go to CVS and pick this up?
not at all. In fact, it's not even called a prescription. In fact, it's called a recommendation because it is a Schedule 1. So you can't actually write a prescription for it. We have to write a recommendation for it.
I'm going to make it kind of cartoonish a little bit.
Yes.
So you give me this piece of paper.
Yes.
And it says I have a recommendation to smoke
Yes.
cannabis.
Not smoke because there's no smokable currently in medical cannabis. So that's one of the things that will change once, and one of the reasons why I went to the Senate is to argue for smokable.
Will that potentially change on the 23rd?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, that becomes there's vape.
Okay.
There will be vape. Well, there has to be because, right? So if Senate Bill 3 goes through, which is the one that bans hemp and all the stuff out there, then House Bill 46, which was Senate Bill 1505 before it went to the House and got reworked.
Yeah.
House Bill 46 has to go into effect because if they take all the vape stuff out of legal vape away, the 8s and the 10s and the whatevers and the whomevers and the whatever that's called, or the 9s that are being labeled 8s.
I do want to talk about that.
Yes, we do need to talk about that, yeah. If they take that away, right, and then they don't have an alternative to back up that, then where do people go? All right, they go illegal.
Black market.
Or they go out of state, or they do something. But they are going to revert back to a prohibition age, and it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And there might even be a little of that going on and there's probably going to be a lot of that potentially going on if they go the other way, because I see people still doing whatever they just do.
Exactly, because if you're doing something that helps you, and then all of a sudden the government tells you can't do it anymore,
right?
And you're not hurting anybody,
right?
Yeah,
right.
I'm going to be finding my medicine,
right? Exactly. And so I worry about that a little bit, obviously.
So just to go back, so once I have the recommendation from you, where do I, as a patient, where do I go next?
So then what I've arranged is, as I was saying and kind of earlier and kind of got sidetracked, I think, is what happens is I call I called these dispensaries and got them, kind of learned them, and then asked them if they would come to me and we can talk about their products and I can learn their stuff. And then we arranged an actual satellite, what we call a temporary pop-up dispensary in my location.
Okay.
And so what happens is I recommend very specifically a certain way that I think you should use your product. and then you can use it whatever you want to do, I guess. But I make the recommendation, especially for my 95-year-olds that have never smoked marijuana.
Yeah.
They may be secret potheads and didn't know it, and that's cool, and we'll end up doing more. But I start them a little this way. I don't want them to go that way, and budtenders have a tendency to want to make them go this way. It's all about the THC. But so I arranged with these dispensaries to, once the patient got the recommendation and it was put into the system, the CURT system, by my nursing staff or myself, which is never pretty, but usually by my nursing staff. Then that system, the CURT system, has a database, and the only people that can access that are the dispensaries and myself or other physicians in the Teacup program. So it's not even something, even though it's run by the DPS, which is an interesting situation we should probably talk about later, because that's bizarre. We're probably one of the only states that has a, once again, I'm getting off track. There's just too many things to talk about.
That just got a bunch of wheels turning.
Yes, right. So DPS running it, is we're one of the only states that has a authoritarian policing authority over top of ours. It's usually the health department or the food and health or
That
drug
makes
administration
sense.
or something like that. Yeah. But we have a policing authority over us, and so or agency, if you will. But anyway, so once these dispensaries, I got in touch with them. They were able to set up a satellite dispensary, if you will, at my location, and so and of course DPS had to come in and inspect and make sure that I was cool. So I put cameras in.
Hey, you
I've
cool,
got
man?
stuff, and I've got don't come in and try to
cool,
get us.
man.
Yeah,
Like,
we're cool. Yeah,
Cheech and Chong or
Yeah,
something.
and I'm not gonna lie, the DPS officers that are involved in the teacup system are pretty cool. You know,
You kind of have to be, right?
You'd have to be, you know. But once again, I don't even know if they know all of the rules with it and how marijuana really works. But
Like, this crap's changing
Yeah,
so quickly
you know.
by the day. Like,
that's exactly right.
can't even
So
keep
they
up with
go in and they police all these current 2 dispensaries, and so they have access to that system. These particular DPS people that certify buildings for this position. And so I acquired the ability with some contractual things and with DPS's check mark and okay to become a pop-up dispensary for them both. So then what happens is my patients then take that information that was put into the system, they make a phone call using their recommendation, and they call either Good Blend or Texas Originals, and I'm usually pretty specific just because one has certain type of strain, one's has other strains, one has certain terpenes, other have certain terpenes and cannabinoids and stuff and different ways to administer it, and so I'm pretty particular from a different people, and then they call in their refills, or the dispensary will say, hey, hello, and they say, this is blah, 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 and they say, well, hey, I saw Dr. blah, 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 and then they go, oh, and they pull it up, and they go say, oh, yeah, what is your social security number, blah, 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 and they pull it up, and they see the guy, he's in the system, they see what I ordered, and then they say, okay, I see she ordered you 4 bottles of this. It was 0 to 1, all THC blueberry gummy. Or I've ordered you, this balm. She's ordered you 3, 1-to-1s, equal parts CBDs. Which would you like? Which flavor? Whatever. And then they have these numbers of bottles that I write for them. And then they ask for a certain number to be delivered to my office on a certain day, and Texas Originals usually comes every Saturday, unless I'm not there. Like my daughter got married recently, so I wasn't there, but I may have rather, no, I'm joking. I didn't say that, Bailey. Yeah, anyway, but so they come every Saturday, and so they drop off orders that have been made by the patients of their recommendations. Okay. So then they call and get their stuff, and then it's written on there, and I'm very exact how I want them to do it, and they oblige me. Probably other physicians in the program aren't as medically in tuned to it. They're just doing it for the money,
Yeah, I gotta take this. You're good.
Yeah, here's 4,000 milligrams.
Yeah.
Good luck. Call
Have
me
at it.
Call me in 10 years, or whatever. And people come to me and don't know where they're supposed to get their product. They don't know anything about it. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to streamline that process. Yeah. Basically make that process not impossible, like I should have known about it, right, with my patient. And so I wanted to take that guesswork out of it. I wanted people to know about it. I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to take the stigma away from it, take the big oak tree shade off of it, and show people what it did. Talk freely about it in a clinic where we can talk about weed and how much you smoke, what you do, and what's our goals,
Yeah.
And then, and so then they can order it. It gets delivered either on a Saturday if it's with Texas Originals or whatever day we arrange, but once a week usually. And then it gets delivered every other Wednesday with Good Blend. So they have a place to come pick it up.
So now they can still see you, and then they'll still come to your office for the pop-up dispensary and get it there. So they don't have to go anywhere besides your. That's awesome.
No, so they don't have to go to Austin or wherever. And then they're legal, and they come, and on Saturdays it's a very busy day, and so Wednesday nights is a very busy night, but that has made it nice I wish they would actually come more often because I could do more. But and sometimes my hospice patients and things like that need more faster delivery.
Sure,
They'll drive
absolutely.
to Austin to get it, you know. And they do deliver product, and that's what they were doing before pop-up dispensaries is they were delivering. But if you can imagine these dispensaries having to deliver
that would be crazy.
everywhere,
Yeah.
and they have to have equal as part of the law. They have to be able to deliver to every part of the state, and so
That's a big ask.
It's a big ask.
Have you seen how big Texas is?
Yeah.
One of the reasons why House Bill 46 needs to happen because the price can't go down if you've got to drive to Lubbock, you know, every day and then have that product back in the vault, back in Austin by noon or by midnight.
So they're
wow.
treating it the same way they would, you know, high potent narcotics.
Yeah, right.
You know, like
and
when you see a lot of times, like they got to be put in safes and stuff like that. Like into the shift or whatever, you know.
they can't leave that building, right? So that the products in Texas right now, as the law stands, those companies have to grow it, process it, dry it, everything with it, separate it, do
Cradle
it,
to
whatever. Yes, they have to do it all. They have to sell it to a person with a name on it before it can leave that building. Once that name is on it, that if they don't pick it up, that has to be carried back to Austin, right, and be in that vault by 12 o'clock, right? And so there's a lot of problems with that, as you can see, right? So one of the 46, what House Bill 46 will change is that we'll be able to carry product in the office in some sort of dispensary kind of way.
Lot of the issues.
So so when people travel, I mean, I have people traveling several hours to come see me, right, from wherever, you know. And so when they come see me, they've got to come right back and get their product again, drive 2 more hours. And if they're hurting or on cancer, you know, they're by themselves.
That's an extreme inconvenience.
It is. And if I can write a product for them and they can just
have it
pull
right
it out of my
on
bag. In sorts, yes.
Okay.
The problem with it is right now we're in this limbo phase where we're all just like, we're ready to go, but we can't. So we're like, hurry and wait.
Well, I was watching some stuff the other day, like in the news, and our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, had his little press conference and was throwing out, I don't know if you saw it at all, Moses, but he was just basically like, hey, we're going to ban all these Delta derivatives that we have.
Yes, yeah. I've been reading about that.
Yeah, and he was just like freaking out on camera and stuff. So how do you feel, because I know you deal with THC. Okay, and then if you want to get to like an analog of Delta, right? Whether it's the 8s, the 10s, the 11s, or
HHC, HHC1, all that stuff.
Right. Every time I walk into one of those shops, I feel like I'm on an episode of Sesame Street.
Yes, like so you're back to your alphabet. Yes, right. Yes, right.
How do you feel about those? Because I know, this is not THC Delta 9 that you're dealing with. How do you feel
this is THC Delta 9 I am dealing with.
Yeah, that's what you're dealing with.
Right.
But they're dealing with everything else.
Right.
So how do you feel about all those other, those analogs of Delta and all that stuff being put out there?
The gas station stuff, basically.
Right. Well, I have 2 feelings on this. And I think that the first thing you have to know is that, one, they took that hemp law and stretched it, right? So there was a definitive problem with how they warped that law, right? And so by using plants that are hemp and less than 3.3% THC, and you can use a lot of plants and make a lot of Delta 9 because every plant contains it, right? To some degree, right? They just got to squish it in there and have a lot of them, right? Or they have to take CBD, which isn't a lot of those plants, right? Which is the majority of what's the cannabinoid in that plant. And they have to use it and then chemically convert it to a 10 or an 8,
it's
right?
Isomerization.
Yes, right. So they chemically convert those things, right? And then there still is 9 in there, so they can still market it as some 9, right? So on the front, you'll see many times Delta 9 sold, but on the back package, I'll ask my patients, bring your package and what are you using? And then it'll say Delta 8, blah, 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 Delta 9. And so
they advertise it as Delta 9, but that's really only a microscopic amount of what's actually in the
It's kind of like the glycerin in a suppository or whatever. I don't know. Well, maybe there's more glycerin in a suppository than right. Okay. But we won't go there. But yes, you get my point.
Yes.
what gets me is, with a lot of, so this isomerization process, for like the people that don't know, you can take the CBD molecule, and it's a relatively easy process, and you literally you add no more extra atoms to it. You just change how it is structured. And my problem with that I'm hesitant with, now I'm an advocate for THC for Delta 9, okay? Right. My problem with these other things, you don't know whose bathtub it was made in.
Right.
And how much medical research is there, and do we really know what truly the long-term effects of Delta 10 is on the human body?
Right. Correct. Correct. I mean, you change the isomer.
We don't understand the pharmacokinetics behind that.
Right. I mean, you change the isomer of albuterol to Zopanex, where just it's levoalbuterol.
Yep.
Just change it just a little bit, right? And you make people not have tachycardia and not have problems with this or that anxiety. I mean, you can make something just a little bit. Still works the same.
Yeah.
Similarly.
And it's crazy because you can just
works
protonate or deprotonate a molecule. Right. You can take off one hydrogen atom, or you maybe even add an oxygen, or whatever you want to do, and it radically changes it.
Right. That's the whole problem. If THC was legalized, that would eliminate the need to have to be creating all these off things that no one knows about. That was the big problem with K2 and Spice a few years ago.
Right. That was the one thing I was going to get into too, is because the rival of synthetics.
Right. Exactly.
And that's a major issue.
Where it gets dangerous.
Right. And that's where the problem lies. Mm-hmm. Right. So now you have these places that are making Delta 8, Delta 10. Delta 9, whatever we're going to call, that are then also selling kratom and selling, mushrooms, but they're not really psilocybin mushrooms. There's some other mushrooms that are more legal mushrooms, but are they really psilocybin? Or are they really not psilocybin?
Well, they're not psilocybin. They're Amanita muscaria.
Yes.
That's not,
and
I don't recommend that.
Yes, and so this is the thing, is you don't know what you're getting in there, right? So you go in there and you find a package with a happy face. Yeah. Or you find a package with a frown, or you find a package with a, their eyes twisted, and, that's the one you want, or a sleepy face, right? And then you're supposed to somehow pick your product out, right? Well, what's in that? Melatonin, gabapentin, maybe you're allergic to those. What's in it? Maybe there's some sort of other valerian root, and, and then you've got kratom, and maybe you've got some Delta 8, and maybe you've got some synthetics, some K2. I don't know what's in there, right?
I don't think anyone does.
We don't know, right? So people come into me and they're like, okay, I'm on this, and that's working pretty good, but I don't like how it tastes. Tastes chemical, or what? I'm like,
Yeah, I wonder why.
We don't know where it was grown, for one. Was it grown in a place that had hard metals in their soil? Yeah. Was it grown organically? Did they put chemicals on? Did they spray the flower before they gave it to you and make it green when it wasn't? Did they put formaldehyde on it, make it PCP? Did they, what all is happening to this stuff? What's the process,
What gets me with these Delta analogs that they're selling is Moses and I have actually seen packages where they've advertised it as, say, Delta 10 or whatever it may be. Something that's not going to pop hot on a regular urinalysis test, right? So the problem is, he went to a tattoo convention a few years ago, bought a box that said it was just some normal, I think it might have been CBD or something, ripped that off, and then it was literally from a dispensary in
California, I believe. It was either from California or Colorado, but they literally had just placed Delta 10 over it. I peeled the label off. It was a legit product from California.
Right. And it's like now you got somebody walking around that could potentially fail a drug test and lose a career.
Absolutely. You got
grandmas. Or I could get arrested because that's an illegal item that I'm not supposed to have, but I bought it legally from a vendor. Yeah.
And that is the problem. That is one of the biggest problems is, you've got these kids going in, young kids, going in thinking they're buying Delta 8 vapes, right, to help them with their anxiety, because back when I was saying just a minute ago, remind me where I'm at if I lose my train of thought. But I said 85% I used to think did it just recreationally. I think 85% of users probably are using it medicinally, just don't understand why they're using it and what they're using it for. And probably 15% are using it to get high, right? Yeah. But that's just what I've experienced in my practice, right? And what I understand and what I've seen out there is that change in my perception is huge. But going back to where we're at with, what was it exactly you said? Where were we at?
We're talking about basically false packaging.
False packaging, okay.
False advertisement.
False advertisement, right. And so if you've got a person that walks in there that's 18, that's 16, right, and buys a vape that he thinks is Delta 8, right, and leaves with it and treating it, has anxiety for it and is smoking it and whatever when he gets home from school just because he thinks it's legal, and then carries it to his football game, and then the cops pull him over, right? He's got this thing in there. The cops don't know what it is. They just know that it's something. They take it in. They arrest him. Sure, they find out later that actually it wasn't Delta 8. It actually was Delta 9.
Congrats,
and
that's
actually they got it from Colorado probably,
Yeah.
and they just are selling it in the vape store, and he thinks he's legal, and he's now got a felony charge on his record. And so you're in, or it's got something else in it that's going to jack him up for a long time, or he goes in there and buys something else that's weird. Yeah. So you've got mothers that have really are struggling with kids that need help, right? Like say mine, right? That need to have something. And then other with autism that are using products over the counter that need to have something, right? And then you've got kids and young kids that are trying to find something. They don't know, and they don't want to talk to their parents about it. Yeah. And then you've got adults, PTSDers, that need something too, right? That they don't know, they can't afford their own fixed income, can't afford to come to the medical, side, right? And so there's that need, right? But at the same time, none of it's regulated right now. I mean, when you go into a gas station, you go into anywhere, you don't know what you're getting. You don't know what's happening. No. You don't know where it's being made. You don't know what's being processed. You don't know if they're lying to you.
I would be
surprised.
It's got
sheriffs confused. It's got people confused.
I would be surprised if you actually really tried your hardest as a consumer to track down where a lot of that material came from. You probably end up in dead ends.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lot of them are paying off laboratories for fake lab results.
Yes.
Because, you and I, we've gone in depth and actually scanned, because a lot of them have the QR code. They're like, oh, check our lab results. You go in and check that laboratory. They're either fraudulent or you can scan 20 different products and it all brings you to the same exact lab result.
Yeah.
Literally
Absolutely.
the exact same one. So they'll do like a mass spec printout and be like, hey, here's exactly what is in here. This is like whatever, like test for like, we saw a lot in Kratom and stuff.
Yeah.
Test for like heavy metals and stuff like that. But then we started realizing the active alkaloid that people seek out from Kratom, the exact quantities were the same across the board
for different products, different brands.
It was all the same laboratory.
Wow, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah,
so
but
then
that's
if you can't trust that, then you're kind of at a loss. Even if you try to be responsible, you really can't.
Because I thought about doing some sneaky stuff. Like this is completely unrelated to the cannabis game. But so I thought about ordering like some standards from like Thermo Fisher or something from like a chemistry perspective. And then like shipping them and be like, hey, can you just test for like some just random stuff and just see what that lab comes back with when I know from like a credible Fortune 500 company what is in this.
What is in it? Yeah. Right.
And see what they just come back with some BS.
Yes, right. That'd be interesting to do, actually. Yeah. And a lot of people have sent off and found 70% of the products in there are mislabeled and blah blah. There's already been tests to show it's pretty known. But at the same time, then I've got these really. You're asking my stance on it, right? Yep. A while back, we got a little. I don't know where we went, but anyway. Damn gummies! No, I'm joking. Anyway, so I've got these people that are truly like TNT Roots here in town, or they're close. Or anyway,
they're like they're really not even that far. They're 30
awesome. Absolutely proud of his product. Totally in it for the holistic component. Wants to help people, and very regulated. Right, and he's got it down. Right,
I mean, heck,
he's growing his stuff.
Billboard right outside my house.
Yes, we fought for that billboard. Yes.
Oh, really?
I said, take it, Luke. No, anyway. No, you're the king of terps, so you might as well get it, Anyway, but shout out to him, Luke.
Yeah, if he watches it, I'd like to have him on, man. I think cool.
He's awesome, and he's on the hemp coalition, and so he's just a cool dude, and he believes in this stuff, right? He believes like I believe, right? And he has a mission like I have a mission, like. Do I want to be there every Saturday? Do I want to be there every Wednesday and Thursday night? I'm old. I'm 54. I'm like, I need to, should I be just going to Belize or something? But I can't.
To slow down at this
point. Yes, right. I mean, I didn't need to take on a new business, but I can't not do it, right? And
sure,
I can't.
Absolutely.
I can't not do it. So, so that's it. That's just end of story. I just do it. And so I'm like, God, help me just keep doing it. I don't know what you want me to do, but I'm just going to keep doing whatever you want me to do until I just keep doing it, until you don't want me doing it anymore. And that's what I feel like he has that same mission. Yeah. He has that same love for people and wanting them. It's not just about the money. It's not just about the whatever. Sure, he needs to make a living, and that's how he chose to make his living. Because he knows things about it, and he has land, and he's growing it, And so he can do it, and he's found all the right connections and hookups for it, And he's an entrepreneur. He should be able to run a business like that. So I'm very torn in that regard, because I think that had they offered maybe 100, hemp licenses or something, or maybe there was some other way to do that, right? Maybe, but how do you send our people and cops and someone in to regulate 8,000 stores that are selling this stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you at some point you have to stop something in order to zero slate and then begin to offer something that's regulation, and then maybe we can grow from there. Mm-hmm. So I see the concept. Dan Patrick, he's the most powerful man in Texas, because he is the lieutenant governor. And in our state, we are the most top-heavy legislature-run state, right? I mean, our Senate is the dude. The dude in the head of the Senate is the man. And it just happens to be lieutenant governor, right, in our state. And we are very highly legislaturally run by Dan Patrick, right?
I mean, it's like every time I turn around, I feel like Governor Abbott is giving a press statement going, we just signed in 300 new laws. It's like, why are we doing it? What are these? Why are we
doing haven't even processed the last round of them.
Right. Well, it's an interesting process going to Senate. That's a whole nother ball game.
We need to talk about that when you went, because we went to them.
Yes.
And talked about this. Advocated for it.
Yes. I was asked by the dispensaries to go and just tell my story and just to share. And
were you nervous when showing up to that?
Well, of course, yeah. Yeah.
You look like that famous photo of Mark Zuckerberg when he has to testify in front of Congress, and he's super nervous. And there's just like 1,000 cameras on him right there,
Yes, I was very nervous. I bought my dress off Temu though, so I mean, just for the record, yeah. So anyway, but I was a little nervous. A lot of people think I'm crazy and wild, and actually, I'm not crazy and wild. I occasionally use a cuss word, and used to use more, but anyway. But I don't want to fly out of airplanes, and I don't want to do a bunch of crazy things, and so I'm pretty conservative in a lot of ways, But I can speak my mind, and so I think there were people maybe a little worried about that, and they wanted me to keep to a statement or something. But I just said what I wanted to say, and I believe in inhalation. I believe that even I have some parolees and some probationers that come to see me that have been arrested for weed charges.
And they're patients of yours now.
They're patients of mine
and now they're allowed to do it.
Now they're allowed to do it, right? And so
talk about a circus right there, man.
And so our laws are just all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So and then we've got employers that will fire you if you're doing it legally, but we know workplace injuries and problems go down, 20%, or even more than that, maybe even 40%. With THC as the medication instead of narcotics and benzos and whatever.
Absolutely.
Right? And Flexerils and all kinds of things that leave them a little dizzy and weird and this kind of thing. So anyway, so the laws are all wanky and jacked up, and so it needs regulation. We have to start somewhere, and unfortunately, we have to pull back. I hate to say it, in order to move forward. And I think if we ever want to legalize, we have to decriminalize. And we can't decriminalize until we can figure out what weed is.
Yeah.
I mean, we got what are we selling here?
Yeah.
And so we have to have some sort of
guideline.
This is it, and this is illegal and this is not. And until we do that, I don't think we can really truly legalize and let people have their want or wish or whatever they, and because I believe in it. I think it works. It's amazing,
So from my understanding and kind of everything that I've read and seen over the years, it seems like there's an overwhelming amount of support from the general public to have it legalized. Now, you can say medically or recreationally, whatever it may be, but legalized across the board. And I've been trying to figure out where all the pushback comes from. Do you think that the major pharmaceutical companies have something to do with this?
There's got to be. I mean, I don't know these things for sure, but I know if you follow the money, usually you find out where the
because it's really interesting to me. Texas, if I remember right, is the only state that borders Mexico that does not have it legalized, and basically for either recreational or medical.
Yeah,
and it's also the only state that borders Mexico where fentanyl test strips are illegal.
Right.
So that makes me wonder.
Yes. Really?
What is your incentive?
Yes, right. Well, and there's a lot of that, right? Yeah. Speculation, and I hear it all. I probably spend more time on my Saturdays and my Wednesdays and Thursdays talking about these things than I do their product selections, right? You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of that, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know it's like it's these guys in Congress who are doing this.
Yes, but I mean, I think it's alcohol as well. I mean, I think it's the alcohol industry. I think that.
Hey, don't you attack Anheuser?
I know. Look, my brother used to be a liquor salesman, so I totally get it. You know what I mean? Yes. Anyway, so but seriously though, it really does because it allows people an alternative to alcohol. I mean, I have a lot of people that are in recovery that come to see me because they don't want to go ever back to that, right? And there's a lot of people that were on these drugs, but know that they were a problem for them in the past, so they don't want to go back to that, right? So there's this, and then there's side effects to Seroquels that help people sleep, and then they get fat, and then what do they do? So there's this, there is a problem, and there's probably is a pushback from these places because once you start using this and you realize it works, you're no longer using that.
Well, we found out the other day. Now, this is going out of the state of Texas, but going to the whole federal government. In Washington, D.C., right now as we speak, there's a little over 500 members of Congress, right? There's over 1,800 registered lobbyists.
Wow.
In Washington, D.C.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, right. Like,
if you think that's not happening in Texas?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Well, lobbyists are on all sides, right?
Sure.
I mean, obviously...
They're not all bad. I know some that work in, environmental stuff. That do really good.
I mean...
literally just protect marshlands for ducks.
Right, yes, absolutely.
Endangered species and stuff. So, it's not all... They're not all, cigarette company.
Yeah. Right. But at the same time, there are those too, right? Yeah. And so when I was down in the Senate, the lobbyists, obviously the dispensaries were pushing for, they wanted this bill. Yeah. Well, we weren't for or against Senate Bill 3. I mean, that was not why I was there. Obviously, I told y'all my stance on that. I think I support hemp. I just think we've gotten out of hand, and there's no way, I don't know another way to stop it. Yeah. And so, or make it get right. But thank God I don't have to be the one to decide that. But I was down there for 46, right? House Bill 46, but which was at the time Senate Bill 1505, and the lobbyist that was working with the dispensaries was very pro, obviously, and he had been hired by them or whatever, or I don't know how that all works, to be honest. And so there are lobbyists that, are going to be for, and they're going to push, and they're going to get the hardest hitting guys they can. But if they don't have this going on, and this thing is being threatened, then these guys got to be strong, right?
Yeah,
so to some degree, it's hard to say that they're the bad guys or the good guys, or... because these guys are pushing for that. But it's not that they're not wanting that. It's just that they have to, they were hired to make sure that there's something available, So, I don't know. I'm not a political player.
I got a degree in political science.
But I do think that, that legalization would be nice. I think it would. But I also think rehabs would be better than punitive, care that we do in most places. So I believe a lot of things that, that aren't going to be what they are, because I think if it was completely about money, it makes perfect sense for it would be a cheaper option for all involved, right? To go this way for patients, right? But right now it's cheaper option for patients to go pharmaceuticals, right? Because they can get it 0%, on their copay or on their copay, and they can whatever. I've got an autistic child that was on 25 medicines, and because I have her on weed now, right? She's on 6, right? Yeah. So, but her parents have to pay for this, right? Yeah. They didn't have to pay for this because I'm Medicaid. Right, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So they go, okay, well, when she's not doing quite right, they just go back here, because that's cheaper, right, than there. And so, sure, lobbyists or from pharmaceutical companies or and sure, we'd love to see it legal so that these guys could then just buy what they wanted, and it would open up a market. And actually, I think competition drives better products, and lower prices, and I think it would be awesome for it to do that. I don't.
So when you went to Austin, mm-hmm. did you get to speak to any of these politicians like off the books kind of thing, like before or after?
I tried to stay far away from anybody. No, I'm joking. No, not specifically. Because a lot of them aren't even there. I'm in a position to talk about it, be on the record, and they go back and play it. They're at lunch, you know what I mean? Yeah. So there were I think 3 senators there at the time of my talk.
2 of them are asleep.
Yeah, and the people that are, and then the recorder person, and then so everybody else is at lunch, talking about the other bills or at another committee meeting or whatever. So, and that's Dan Patrick's, what he's doing, right? I mean, he puts people, he has the power to take people that he wants to hear certain things and wants to be certain places and wants to be in this committee or that committee, and he can place them strategically where he wants them to be, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's No, I didn't try to talk to any of them because I didn't believe that my voice alone would change anything, truly. Yeah. But I do believe that my voice can be a catalyst, and it can be an opening for discussion. Yeah, and discussions have to be had in order for change to be made. And I didn't know how this medicine worked. And these guys that I was at the table with don't know how this medicine works, right? They've never seen it, right? Mm-hmm. I've got doctors that refer patients to me now only because they've seen it. They sent something to me that then they went, wow, this was their trouble child. And they went, I can't take care of this person anymore. Send him to her. Send him to Dr. Moon. She'll take anything, and let's see how she does with this one, And sure enough, they get better, and they go, holy, So the same thing. I mean, these people don't know anything about what's really going on. They just think everybody's getting high. I mean, my motto of my business is not high, less medicated. Now, you can get high as you want to be high. You can get as euphoric as you want to be. And that's normal for some people, right? So my 95-year-old may not want to feel anything, and I get him right there, right? And then just wants to sleep, and he feels a little more, right? My 25-year-old who's in a wheelchair because he was, C1, fracture, and he's never going to walk again, and he sits at home all day long, might want to feel a little euphoria every so often.
And I think that's actually a really good point that you bring up, Dr. Moon, because I believe that, it's just being human. And, we can talk about, the medicinal side, say like pain management is a big one. That's always a focus and stuff. But there is an element where, and this goes to autonomy of the body, like my freedom, my choice, right? Yeah. If I want to get euphoric in a safe and responsible manner, I feel like that is my right to do.
Yeah, I don't see the issue with that.
And I am a little bit religious, so I'll kind of touch on something. Right, yeah. But the thing is, I'm a human on this earth, right? And it's and if you have a plant that grows here naturally, right. Who are you to tell me that I can't enjoy that and use that plant how I see it?
Right, absolutely.
Especially when there's so many other plants that we use.
Right.
Like if it was an endangered species, I'll hear you out.
Right,
but if you come to me one day and it's like, hey, you can never eat a tomato again, I'll be like, you are on crack.
You're smoking it, man, and not what I sell. Yeah.
Not the prescribed one.
Yeah. So there is that element of it, Because I mean, that's just who we are as human. I mean, we we didn't evolve to be just content.
You're right, exactly. We're all trying to find happiness. We eat a cheeseburger every so often, you know what I mean? Yes, I mean, we go on a diet, but we're going to have fun. Yes, and that's just American nature, but that is human nature, right? And so that is where I think you're right. You're absolutely right. You have the right to go out and get drunk, just don't drive. You have the right to go out and get high. Just order
don't play
pizza.
With guns.
Don't play with guns. Don't let your children get a hold of your brownies. I mean, you've got to be responsible with your whatever, you know.
Sure,
for sure.
If that's what you want to do. But you know.
I mean, hell, enough salt will kill you.
Yeah, apricot seeds, right? You can, you know,
Cyanide
you can,
poison.
yes, right? I mean, apple seeds. I just found out you just can do like 120 of those or something, and you can die, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you know, those upside down tulip plants, you know, that we had those in Florida when I was an ER physician there. You know, a lot of people got high on those and came in with that psychedelic high, and we were like,
Are you talking about Blue Lotus?
I don't know the name. I can't remember. It's been too many years ago, and I'm old.
Yeah,
but
it's a lotus that floats, like grows in the water and like floats.
No. This one just grows in people's yards, and it's an upside down kind of tulipy looking thing, and it's got a stamen and a stigma, or you know, whatever you call those.
Some of our viewers are going to be
right.
Googling
You got it. Yeah, thanks. I'm like, ugh, that's a long time ago. But yeah, they'll take the stuff off those, kind of like a honeysuckle, you know.
Yeah. Huh.
And people's plants will go away, and they don't realize that it's psychedelic. And you know, I mean,
that's what kids are doing in Florida these days.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, well, that was 25 years ago. I don't know what they're doing in Florida right now, you know. But
some crap, so I cooked in a bathtub.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I mean, that is you're right, you know. But unfortunately, in Texas, it's still not your right, you know. So
yeah, and
so
I don't get it
is.
because you know, Texas is you know, while it is, you know, a red state, they really take, you know, pride on like, this is my property.
Yeah, personal freedom.
Like, personal
aside
freedom.
from your body.
But when it comes to your body, they're like, no.
Right.
Now, I understand, like, you have to have some oversight. You just can't have a complete, total Wild West and anarchy, like bootleggers running stuff. You know what I mean? There needs to be some level.
Not like Oregon was.
You know, but it just blows my mind in the state of Texas that we're like that. And we just, you know, and you see it, and I'm not trying to get on your opinions at all about this, but you see it, like, with abortion and stuff.
Right,
you know?
right.
So you definitely see it with the cannabis laws, and I don't know. You know, I found out the other day, like, you have to be, 21 to buy tobacco now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like,
wow, you can
campus.
fight for your country and die.
And you can't smoke a cigarette.
But you cannot smoke a cigarette.
Because I was on campus, and some guy was like, hey, man, do you mind going and get me a pack of smokes? And I was like,
yeah.
How old?
You're in college.
Yeah, right.
You know, like,
and don't do it, because you actually, I think there's a law against that. But anyway.
I did. I was like, no. I was like, I got to
I'm cool. Never mind. Anyway, before you say anything else.
But it's like some 20-year-old kid's been in college for 2 years is like trying to hit me up for cigarets. I was like, oh, man. This is
crazy.
Just go to the gas station and get a Delta whatever.
Yeah, go get a Delta 9 pen. They label as Delta 8. Yeah, that's legal. Yeah. So, exactly. Yeah. So, I guess my thinking, and I've not really, so I'm going to think out loud here a little bit.
Yeah, that's okay.
So, oh, help you. You know, I think that we've always been a hang 'em, you know, kind of state, right?
Yeah.
Hang 'em. They steal your horses, you hang 'em, right? I think there's still a hanging law on cattle, you know? I think there still is. It's still a viable law. If you steal cattle, you could be hung, you know?
There's a law that's still in effect for, like, agreeable mutual combat.
Yeah, yes, right. So there you go. So I think as a general rule, we've been considered this, like, we're, you know, tough and this kind of thing.
Freedom.
And so we got guns and we don't want, you know, this. And so I think that which I have a lot of guns too, but anyway. You know, so I get all that too, but, you know, it's cool, you know. But I think that there's some degree, there's this, we want to be our own thing. And we want to be what, like the politicians, we want to run Texas. And so I think that there's this sense of that we are different than the whole United States, and we're different than every other country, you know? Yeah. Maybe I'm just talking because I'm a Texas girl and I'm, you know, but I really feel like that we're Texas proud. Yeah. And so in some degree that the people running the show. One is to still be our own thing, you know. And so by doing what California's doing, we're not our own thing. I mean, by doing what everybody else is doing, we're not our own thing.
It's all just one big ego.
Yeah. Yes. We got like a big Texas ego. Yeah, like a big cowboy hat, right? We want to be, that's my personal thought, because it doesn't make sense, like, clinically, except for the fact that, you know, you've got a lot of people in prison for this thing. You've got to decriminalize it, and before you can, you know, legalize it to some degree.
And then the privatized prison system doesn't like that.
Doesn't like that. Yep, exactly. And then you've got this who's in jail for it versus who didn't go to jail for it. Yeah. And it can be racial and different, all kinds of things related to that. It brings into all of that. And then Texas is we've got we're the South. You know, so we have a reputation in that regard. Sure. And so I think that there's a lot of that plays into it, is that how do you make it legal and not illegal? And I don't know. I think there's a bunch of different issues that keep us wanting to be different than out there. But I want to make sure that people get what they need and don't have to move out of Texas to do it.
Yeah.
You know, because I've had families that would have done that.
Absolutely.
So how many other people are in your position as far in Texas that are allowed to prescribe cannabis?
I think there were, from what I last heard, there were like 350 registered, but like 120 that are even doing
like actively doing
anything with it. Okay. And so because they don't want to, because they're scared.
Yeah, they don't want to deal with all the potential
they have
backlash.
All these things, right? You know. Potentially happening, and they don't want to have to do it separate and this and that.
Because it does seem like a lot of extra legwork for sure.
Right. So if you
then you're also taking on a lot of risk by doing what you're doing too. So. And
if you really just do want to take care of people, you don't want to lose that capability of taking care of people, right? But at the same time, I have to make a stance on it because there are so many people out there. There are lots of people that do cannabis on like Zoom, or I wouldn't even call it Zoom. I'd call it a 2-minute. How many milligrams do you want?
Sure.
Click. That'll be $190. You know what I mean? That then people call me to figure out how to get into the system, and I'm going, what do you mean get into the system? Were you shown anything? Do you know anything about it? Do you know that you have to eat with it? Edibles? I mean, all these different things. And so there's a lot of people that are doing it, but I don't know how many people are doing it right in my book.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? That's just my personal opinion. You know.
I just looked up the population of Texas because when you told me there's only about 120 physicians actively doing it, really.
Right, something along those lines, and I may be wrong on those. So don't quote me. Right. Dispensaries.
Let's just say it's even say it's 500. Say it's 1,000.
Yeah.
The number
I know
to tell
that
you,
there's like
crazy.
350 that are registered. Can I get a glass? Can I get a water?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. There's over 31 million people that we know about in the state of Texas.
Yes. It's a lot. So I would, and so it's so conservative. I mean, we have such a negative connotation of it. And we've been, I don't know if something went, we had a large predominance of like the red ribbon, don't do drugs, eggs fried. This is what your brain is on drugs.
I remember that in school.
I don't know. I mean, my kid had red ribbons up in his, bathroom, and until like 3 years ago when I started selling weed. So, so he was like, and then he started doing the CBD, and he's like, well, that has to come down.
What's so funny is that you just talk about, being a mom and then like selling weed and stuff, and then I just had this moment where I just thought, I was like, that's crazy because that's not the first time I've heard this story, but the only difference is you're a licensed medical professional.
Yes.
Like everyone else I knew. It's
like you don't grow up and find out your parents smoked weed the whole time.
Yeah. Like, what?
Yeah. What is this crap?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that a lot of people say, don't say weed and don't say marijuana. I'm like, it is weed. We're talking about weed. Let's talk about what you smoke. You smoke it out of a pipe, one hitter, bong. Let's talk about it, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. can, And so I call it what it is.
It's no different than talking about alcohol. Be like, oh, I took 17 shots or whatever you're doing. Like,
or when a kid comes in and I want to talk about your vagina, right? I mean, we're going to call it what it is. You know what I mean? Right? But you get my point.
Yes.
It's maybe a little much, but anyway, you get it, right? We're going to be real with names, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to.
That's the only way to learn about it is to talk about it appropriately.
Around it, right? Parents
We're also
need to
like
hear.
a medical doctor too.
Yeah, and they need to hear about warts and genital warts. Yeah, that's on your vagina, and your penis and your, and then we talk about weed. Yes, right. Yes, right.
Yeah,
talk
really,
about weed, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, right?
Masking those words instead of it's just beating around the bush kind of makes it even more of a
shady.
Taboo. Exactly.
And it makes it shady. And so I'm really about taking the shade off of it when I believe in it, And I'm not a big push for a lot of. I mean, but if I believe in something, by God, I'm gonna try to make sure my patients are capable of getting it as best as I can,
And that that is one thing that I do admire about you, Dr. Moon, and that's something that I kind of feel is really important. And when you look at things, we can talk about cannabis, be like, hey man, if it works, it works. And my thing too, I know this is totally not in your realm, but I've known quite a bit. I've been to countries where psilocybin mushrooms are legal, 100%. You can buy them over the counter, okay? And I've seen people have serious issues with PTSD and addiction and take that one time.
Yeah.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
And it never returns.
Yes.
Now, not
Same
everyone's
with ketamine.
but it's crazy. But it's insane. So I think we need to start being able to have that open dialogue, those open conversations, and quite honestly, we need to leave it up to just medical professionals.
Exactly. The problem is there's crooked ones of those too, right? And there's and then there goes that, right?
They want those incentive to sell prescription drugs, and
or they
kickbacks.
just want to make money. They just want, or they just want to make money doing the thing not the right way, right?
True, because some would be more content prescribing something for an extended period of time other than a one and done and actually help the patient.
And actually know what they're doing, right? And we're not taught the endocannabinoid system. We're not taught the psilocybin. I don't even know much about psilocybin yet, but it's coming, I'm sure. But so I can't. I know what it is. But I don't know much medically speaking about what it is. So I don't make recommendations on psilocybin at this point.
Definitely not asking.
But I see that as the next thing, like ketamine.
Mm-hmm.
Ketamine. I think ketamine can be used in microdosing and can really help people with PTSD and depression and things like that. So I think there are lots of those things out there that we can do, But unfortunately, some doctors suck, I mean, and providers have turned to. And nothing against nurse practitioners and PAs, and I mean, I love lots of them. I think some of them are smarter than some of the physicians I know, to be honest. But they're turning to ways to make money off of these things that are, and that's, I guess, always been how it is, but I see it more so now than I ever have. And I don't know if it's the disgruntled nature of medicine, but that just want to make money on people. Yeah. I mean, that's all.
If you want to get me started, I've gone on this rant on this show before. I mean, I read that Empire Pain about the Sackler family and the whole Purdue Pharma and OxyContin and how all that started.
Right.
I mean, I could go on a huge rant about that.
So it's the same concept as that, right? Moving that industry down the line as it is with, weed, right? Yeah. So you've got some doctors that'll take it and give it out in quantities that would surprise you and not give any instruction, right? And are just as bad as someone that's writing for too much narcotics and that's doing that for another company, right? So one dispensary has one doctor who they just want to, and they want to make sure they can get more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that any of that happens. I'm just saying that that's the problem we face is with anything like that is you've got crooked people on every side,
Absolutely.
So to give doctors the autonomy to make that decision all by themselves leaves it up to crappy people ruin it for everybody.
Well, this kind of brings me into my next subject that I want to go into. And now this doesn't really have anything necessarily to do with THC and cannabis. So there's only 2 countries in the world where you're legally allowed to advertise pharmaceutical products, like commercials, television, all that stuff, right? It's America and New Zealand.
Yeah.
How do you, why am I being shown a commercial and being told to ask your doctor about this product.
Right.
And I have no training in the medical field whatsoever.
Right.
Do you think that we should get rid of pharmaceutical advertising like that?
I don't necessarily have that we should get rid of it. I think you should be allowed to advertise where you want to advertise. You know, I believe in freedom of, whatever you want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough.
You're right. So I don't think they shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, I love when my patients come in and ask me about something personally.
Really?
I like when they chat GPT something, or they Google something, or they Wikipedia it, and I'm going to really show my age with that. But anyway, but you get my point, So the more information they have, they come to me. Sometimes I learn from them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think if you can be humble about it, you can, whatever. But back to your question, should they advertise, and should the pharmaceutical people make money? Well, a lot of times, even when they come back with that information, I still can't prescribe it. I still can't.
Sure.
But does it increase the conversation about that medicine? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. I mean, I don't, and I know there's a lot of just federal laws against weed being advertised, but if we could do that with weed, right? We could do that with dispensaries, and we could do that with how to do it and what to take and blah, 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 or just that it's available. I have so many people that don't even know that weed is even a legal thing in Texas medically. Yeah. I mean, like what? But I didn't know that 3.5 years ago, So do I think that they're, sure, you can advertise for whatever. Yeah. I mean, at the end of it, it says you're going to die from everything anyway.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that list of side effects.
If you actually want to ask your doctor about something that you're going to die from, sure. Come in and we'll talk about it, And then like I said, I learn things from those people that come in and we talk,
Fair enough.
So I don't have any problem with it. But I do believe there's money making in that process, obviously, and someone's at the helm of, what's being able to be advertised and what's not being able to be advertised. But as it stands, weed is not legal. Those are, So
sure.
I would like to see some marijuana commercials.
Kind of funny. I mean,
there's alcohol, Ozempic, everything else.
Absolutely.
Ask your doctor about THC.
That's why I wanted to do a podcast. I want there to be more information.
Yes, there does need to be
of realness of what really is going on
and how it can actually help people.
And how it can help people. Yeah, right. There has to be, and you have to get it out somehow. So we just have to go to a different, or like Russia right now, we have to go to a different platform or something until we can talk about it on the media. You know what I mean? Or something like that. I don't know. But it's kind of bizarre, So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long did you say you've been a doctor?
For 28 years. So, something like that.
It's fair to say you know what you're talking about.
Well, I like to believe I do. And I've been doing medical cannabis for 3.5 years. And so when basically the laws changed, I kind of took it up. But I started my practice not knowing that 420 was a very special day in the weed world. On 420, had no clue about that. I thought it was
that is a sign from above.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I was trying to start it in December, but then the whole medical malpractice issue happened, and I was like, and floored, and then I went back to the drawing board, and then boom, and then things just started happening, and we started getting things together, And that was before I discovered ChatGPT, so everything I wrote was actually my own words. I just want to say that. Every piece of paper,
I call it the before time.
Yeah, man, exactly. Yeah, that's when people actually wrote things and didn't have it made up for them. So I've been practicing for a long time. I feel like I would do it for free if I had another source of income. If someone would make me rich, and capable, everybody who worked for me, I would make them have comfortable lives. I'm a giver, man. I'm a giver of my time and I'm just a giver. And so I would love to give more and more and more if I can. And I would do it for free. So I enjoy medicine. That is what I enjoy doing. And I enjoy my patients being helped. And I refuse to settle for where medicine is going. And that's away from the patient's will, And so that's one of the things I like about weed is that it puts the power back in the patient's hands, right?
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, so
sure.
many of these cancer patients or families with autistic kids or are just being at the mercy of these doctors who are just like for 5 minutes coming in and diagnosing their kid with something and giving them a Seroquel prescription,
you in the eye when
or
they talk to
barely
you.
even learn the story, not listening to the mom because they don't want to hear it because they have 5 minutes and that's all they get paid to see him for.
Yeah.
And so you know, I'm not going to go that direction. I refuse to go that direction. Yeah. I mean, and so my goal is to take that and not let that happen in my world, you know, because it's tiring to be good.
Yeah.
To walk the narrow path into heaven is a very hard road. No, I'm joking, but you know what I mean. I mean, it's really hard because it takes a lot more energy, right, to do it the right way and to do it good and to do it when you're meaningful and to really want to help people. And so for me, it's a mission and it's a calling, I think. And so, and I'm a little on the wild side, maybe. I told you I don't jump out of planes, but I've done some other things. You know? So just Google far enough. Yeah, so anyway, I have, but I also believe that people need conversation. They need to talk about stuff, and we live in East Texas. I don't know how I ended up here. I'm like, what the hell, you know?
Anybody knows how
yeah,
ended up here.
I mean, a man. I ended up here. I followed a man, you know. So I mean, that's how it goes for women, you know. We follow them, you know. And so here I am. So that's odd in itself. So why did I end up here? Well, there's a reason. I had to open up some doors to let some people talk about some stuff. I don't know. Maybe it just took something, you know. Yeah. But I believe there's a reason for everything. But I really love what I do. So I just really think that if I can give everybody a choice at what they can do with their bodies and give their will back to them and have a cancer patient that's been given only 10 Xanax, you know, and is going to count their pills at the end of the day and, you know, and I can give them this many milligrams, tell them exactly how to do it and give them a PRN dose and this is what you get it, brother, until you feel the way you need to feel and this is what I need you to be at night and this is how I want you to do it here and this is what I want you to give when you need it and this is what I want you to give on top of that, you know.
Do you want to be my doctor?
Yeah, right. Sure. I only take 4 insurance companies, and otherwise I take cash. No.
Take crypto?
Yeah. You know, eggs were a hot thing for a while. But,
they were.
Yeah. I did get some of those. But I almost don't want to say that because I might be taxed or something, you know. So, but the will is really cool to see patients get back, right?
Because that to me, I think was probably the most rewarding thing I could ever imagine seeing.
Yeah.
It's like when you brought somebody back.
Oh, they have their will.
Yeah.
They get to choose their dose. Some of them come in and go, I thought you only said I could, you know. And I'm like, no, dude, just get it. Let's go. Yeah. What are you doing? You know, but help her out. You know, and so there's so much. I don't wanna, you know, because they're so used to being controlled by the doctors, you know, writing of this or that, right? They're under chemo direction and they don't know anything about chemo. It's like me taking my truck to a diesel mechanic, right? I know nothing. They could clear the code and I'd never know. And I'd pay $15,000 for a new engine, you know, and I'd be like, all right, thanks a lot, you know what I mean? And so, you know, they're trusting of these physicians. They're trusting of these people and they just have to go down their road. And instead, I get to give them, don't not go down that road. I still believe in that road. I still believe that there's lots of merit to that road, you know. But you also have this so that you can have your will back and your power is restored. That's probably been the hardest thing to see is people come in powerless and just completely hopeless. And then the coolest thing is a month later, a completely different family, a different person, someone out of a wheelchair, now gardening. I mean, it's like every Saturday is the coolest freaking day.
I felt like I just
ever.
heard a locker room speech. And
I mean, like, I
cool.
want.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I'm like, oh crap, like, yeah, why are we doing this, man?
Yes,
like
yes.
anyone that hears that, like, how can you not at least stand beside it or at least give it a chance?
Yes, right. And there's so many medical problems that people don't understand that it's useful for. And to be honest, if you have pain, I think it works for you. And pain is a nerve problem. Every piece of pain we have in our body comes from a nerve that goes to our brain and says you have pain.
Yeah.
So, a chronic neurodegenerative disease is pain in my book, And so, but if you came and you said, hey, this is the problem and I don't want to be on these medicines that are bad for me. I want to be on something else, but I don't even know what I'm doing. I've never even done that. Then I want to be able to show people how to do that, get them off this and do it right. And do it where they don't have a negative stigma of it, and can do it and not have to be high and jacked. And so many people don't know how to do edibles.
Yeah, and like I'll be honest with you. Like I don't personally use any cannabis products whatsoever, not even CBD, because I'm one of those guys, man. Like if I take some THC, I'm under the table hugging the leg, like looking out the window for like helicopters.
Yes.
I look like that guy from Goodfellas driving around.
Absolutely.
All paranoid.
Yeah, me too. I
start thinking
totally paranoid.
I start thinking that I'm going to have a heart attack and stuff.
Yeah, I totally get paranoid. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm a paranoid. No. Yes. That's exactly.
And then everybody was like, "You just haven't found the right strand," and
you're like, "Oh, sure, okay," Right. So you would be one that would come in. It would take me a little longer to convince you that I can do it a different way. So that I can make you be on it and not have to feel that.
Yeah, so you can feel good without all the
You can
paranoid.
feel less anxious. You can feel less depressed. You can feel less pain. You can feel less whatever. Given a dose and using the constituents in the marijuana plant in different ways. So CBD, if I push the ratio of CBD up in it, I can blunt a little of that THC high and the paranoia. So I can push the dose higher for your pain, but then you don't get high, euphoric from it. So it makes me be able to, knowing the constituents of the meds and using the terpenes and the different, like the essential oils of marijuana, if you will, and then using the cannabinoids in different ways, it makes me be able to give people different experiences with it and so I can treat people from age 3 to age 93 who have either smoked all their life and been in World War I, Actually, I think it'd be 2 now, but anyway. Anyway, you get it. Yeah, you get it. But that, so I can take that gamut and that spread, and I can pull apart that information and go, okay, and you have this and this and this, and my head's going, I've got a product, and these are them, that I think we ought to try, and so I can give you a direction where you don't have to feel what you're concerned about feeling, but still give you ability to have no social anxiety, so you can go to HEB or that really may have dated me. No, there's an HEB.
No, there's still,
Okay, I'm like, no, there's still one, and I think they're building a bigger one.
I'll tell you my biggest fear, ever. Like you can put this like a cartoon right now is at a party, right? Somebody brings out a batch of brownies, homemade. Everybody starts eating them, and they're like, "Hey, Justin, eat this." The answer to that is always going to be no.
No, right. And that would be my recommendation, yes. Because unless you had a brownie that was made from a dispensary in controlled amount, you might get the brownie with all of it in there.
Well, so like another thing personally for me, like even when I have smoked in moderation and stuff, and this has been years ago, I get the spins really bad.
Right. Yeah.
Like it almost feels like being
dizzy.
really drunk. And
right.
Sometimes I'll even like puke from it.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Have you
Very
ever seen
common.
that before?
Absolutely. Yes. Not uncommon at all. Yes.
Really?
Not uncommon at all.
You're not giving me hope here.
No, not uncommon at all. In fact, I've seen just about the gamut of everybody who's come in scared to death and don't come because of this reason, right? Because they had this horrible experience, or they took edibles in Vegas and they had one of those nights in Vegas.
They met the devil.
Like the hangover night. And they're like, holy crap. I'm never doing that again. Right? It's like a bad tequila night, you know? So there's so much of that. That's the problem, is there's just so much of people that have just had all these different experiences with marijuana, right?
Yeah.
And so to take all those experiences, right, and have to make an assessment from that, okay, well, you smoked weed in Vietnam. You didn't care if you died or lived there. Okay, you know what I mean? And it was cool to get out of your head there, man, because you just saw your friend die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now you're 90 years old and you want to make sure that you take care of your grandkids, or you're 52 and you want to, you know, whatever. So you got a different attitude towards it now, you know, and you just need to be out of pain, or you just want to be able to do more in life, or you want to be able to enjoy your life, or you don't want to commit suicide if this doesn't work, you know? And so to be able to take people who have this, or, you know, that's actually a person who had a good idea of weed. But, I mean, I've got a lot of, like, older people that have tried products from the head shop.
Whole spectrum of
yeah, right. I mean, I could go on for probably hours of the different groups of people that I've seen that then I have to convert them. It's like that's what the most expensive visit is of my first visit, is because I want to teach people how to do it. Yeah. I want people to know what they're doing. I want their power back. I want them to get their power back. And if they know what they're doing, right, it's not just me going, take this, 3 of them at night. Call me in the morning, or call me, or I'll see you in 18 months, you know, right? Then
call me if you need anything.
Yeah, right. Then my patient, I can sit down, I can teach them how weed works. CBD does this to THC. CBG is an anti-inflammatory. If I put CBD with more THC, if I put you with more of this, then you're going to get less high, you're going to be less sleepy, you're going to be able to take it in the daytime. But then at night, I can make it more of an equal ratio of CBD to THC, or I can make it all THC, or I can make it 5 o'clock somewhere.
I might be calling you in a couple of weeks.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I can really dial that in, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, after a hard day, you either come home and have a drink, right? Mm-hmm. Come home and have a drink, and they have drinks at these dispensaries, and you can put 5 milliliters of a 30 milligram stuff, some stuff with turmeric and ginger and a bunch of other cool stuff in it, and it's called an Elevate drink, and put a little bit of that in your cucumber water and go to Pilates. You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, you know? I mean, so instead of having a drink and get a toxin loaded in your body, you have something that's regulated and checked, and I can tell you how to do it, you know? And you don't have to be drunk and, you know, whatever. And you have your control back, you know, and you have that ability to make your own decisions and to be as controlled or whatever as you want to be, you know, or as, like, rested. Maybe you do want to take a nap. Maybe you have a migraine. Maybe you are on this dose every 8 hours, but you have a bad day, right? You get your chemo that day. Maybe you want to do an extra dose and you do just want to sleep it off.
Yeah.
Maybe you just want to be out of your mind for a few minutes because this sucks and your life sucks. Mm-hmm. And you just had to get your breast cut off, you know. Okay, well, this is the dose until you get better, and then we're going to, so that you don't have to get on Zoloft and Prozac and Wellbutrin and all these other antidepressants so you can deal with your life, you know, the way it is, you know.
Dang, that's a lot.
So, sorry.
This has been awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think should we about ready to wrap it up, man?
Yeah, so.
Any things, any other questions y'all have that you.
We covered. I basically got everything I needed. I wanted to know out of that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Final thing, if anyone wants to find you or talk to you, how do we get a hold of you for that?
Yeah, so I have a Facebook, and I actually have what do you call it, a website. Thank God I have people that help me with this stuff. Yeah. I am old, remember. East Texas Medicinal Meds is the company, my company's name.
Okay.
And Averdant Restorations was what it was made out. It's not the big company name, but East Texas Medicinal Meds is my company, and it's 936-205-8722. Call the number. We have I call it 2 shady phones, but we have a shady phone for my office manager who does the scheduling, and another shady phone for the nurses, my weed nurses, you know, during the day, right? So that if you had a problem with your medicines, and I probably have over 1,000 patients, you know, now, and so, you know, if you had, because I'm very particular about the way I dose and what I want you to be on, because I'm trying to achieve your neuropathy, relief with terpenes or this terpene or that. I'm trying to get rid of you. You don't want you to be high. I don't want you to go get a blueberry gummy that's 30 milligrams THC just because you like blueberries, right? You know, I want you to be on a little more CBD, you know, maybe a 1-to-1, you know, maybe a 3-to-1 sometimes, you know. I'm very particular, so I usually will just have them call my nurse if they want to try a different product that's advertised or something like that. So I have a nurse phone and an actual scheduling phone.
And Dr. Moon, we'll put the link to your website in the description.
Yeah, all of your personal information that you want shared, we'll have it at a link in the description.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I was thinking about y'all are awesome for inviting me on. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
This is like so. I've been wanting to get to get information out there about what's happening.
I was just about to tell you, anytime you want to come on, you're more than welcome, whatever you want to talk about as laws change. And
especially after the 23rd, if anything happens one way or the other, we'd
probably,
love to have you back on.
I would love to be back on because I think that's going to be huge in our world, in Texas, I think. And that's going to change the game. And then I think, you know, whatever happens with the director of this program and how he makes the laws more particularly, you know, will determine a lot. And I think September 1 or October 1 will be a big day too. And that would be when it's kind of, you have to have the laws settled out before we can begin doing the stuff on it, you know? Yeah, and so, but yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I wanted to start a podcast myself. And I just kind of felt weird because I have so many friends in the business, in the hemp business. I would never want anyone to ever think I didn't want that business. I think that I mean, hemp, make hemp great again, man. You know what I mean, right? You know, I'm all about it. And I think it's good. I actually almost was gonna grow it. I almost was gonna kill my Coastal Bermuda and 400 acres and grow weed right before this all went down, man. You know, so that was where I was gonna be. So I support all of that, and so I just hated to do a podcast, start doing one, and touch on some feelings I just didn't want to give anybody any thoughts that I was trying to rub it in anybody's face or any of that. That's not where I'm at. And I want all good things for all people.
You can always come on our show anytime you want, Dr. Mann.
So thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Good.